Anywhere, yeah. And the train was a transport,
Yeah.
settling of the debt.
Yeah.
Right. We was already doing that. Our our method was interrupted. This is where you get your Pony Express from.
Hmm.
Right. We had courier systems across the land. I told you, Big Mama tell you exactly where your plot of land was, but she ain't never left the house. I've been living there my whole life. I ain't never seen Big Mama leave. I'm 56 years old. But when she give you the directions to your plot of land, it's gonna you're gonna see exactly where she tell you looking for. Right? So we got communication networks that predate all of the stuff we see around us today. It's just that most of us are so disconnected from the culture and so saturated with the out of Africa concept that we never look back to the real culture we from. We look to the foreign culture, right? But when you do a comparative analysis, you find that some of the tribes over there got a similar culture, but it's seasoned a little bit different. Almost like looking at people from New Orleans talk to people from Arkansas. They both from down south, but they seasoned just a little bit different. One of them got that old Creole boil, right? The other one got that Big Papa's old school mix, whatever they call it. The juke, they put the juke on the joint.
Yeah,
But
they eat monkeys over there. We eat coons over here.
yeah, all that. Like people in the north be like, ew, he eat coon.
Yeah, we roast that coon
Man, coon, possum, right?
I don't really
But
like that possum.
well, I don't like the way now one of them look. Look, I
Greasy.
open my aunt.
Greasy.
I
That
open
possum
look,
greasy.
look. My auntie used to be married to a dude named Junebug. Junebug is a scarab beetle
Go ahead.
in Egypt,
Yeah.
right? It's the same concept. The Junebug job is to look for the chief.
Go ahead.
And because remember that the mythology that surrounds Kefra,
Look for the
right?
sun.
Kefra is the dung beetle, but it's also the sun before it rises.
Yeah.
And they tell us that the Kefra beetle rolls the ball of dung across the sky as the sun.
Yeah.
Right? That means that, in other words, Kefra is the scout looking for a budding chief in order to alert his clan that there's a chief rising on the land.
Go ahead.
Right? Remember you was talking about how they read the stars and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, when you from the culture produces itself in front of you, and if you read the culture, the names make sense.
Uh-huh.
So once you understand what everything is, now you know what you're working with in unraveling the secrets that they're using to keep us under control. All this stuff coming to an end. We at end game now.
Man, it's like once you find out that King George sent the goons in on us, and he paid the goons. Man, after that, man, it really hurt your feelings to see somebody on the corner with a King James version of the Bible saying, "Come join this charter." That's what it is. It's a charter. The King James Bible is a charter. That's what it is. Man, I'm telling you, it's like a contract.
Which was the next on that list of the after politics, you got religion.
Go ahead.
Right? The word religion means to tie back down. Right? And it's also a mirror of two other words. Re and legios is Latin, but when you look at it, it's the Legion of Ra, is the Ra's many, which is the many chiefs, the many little sons. Right? So now it's talking two things at one time. It's telling you who they trying to tie down, right? And that they trying to tie you back from doing your work by trapping you in this contract. The Bible is the foundation of the Constitution. that sink in.
But they tell you, but they tell you that it came from the Quran. It's got another group. I guess that's the Moors.
That's the
They say,
Moors.
oh
The
yeah,
Moors
ride
say
from Muslim law. Right?
but look, Islamic law, they don't want Sharia law for real. I promise you, they don't want no, you do not want Sharia law. Half of them can't even follow the rule of Salat, let alone try to follow Sharia law in its totality. We got more laws on the books than they do in Sharia law, but I guarantee you their consequences is more severe.
Yeah, take that
And
boy back and stone him.
if it says stoned him when Muhammad was here, you getting stoned today under real Sharia law. If it say tar and feather you in Muhammad during Muhammad time, that's what they gonna do. They gonna tar and feather you, right? We got to know what we dealing with. Our cultures are here. Our culture is here. You know, you got all these different chiefs sitting here watching right now, looking at Rod Hayes talking about, man, you done woke the tribes up.
Everybody rocking up.
Right? I'm telling you where to find us at. I'm telling you that all of this stuff, the hand behind it right now is a group of chiefs in Raven Rock, Colorado. Exactly which one's down there, I don't have to know. That's not required. I just got to tell you where the moves is being made from. Who making the moves? Is it the enemy or is it us? Remember, I told you got to know where your dog at in the fight. Because if you don't know where your dog at in the fight, you're going to grab the wrong dog and get bit.
Hey, somebody said that Donald Trump, you heard anything about that, about Donald Trump going on promoting the Confederate? Well, I listened to the tape that they said, but he ain't never mentioned Confederate. He just mentioned some Confederate schools that so happened to be all Confederate schools. And when you study the Union philosophy versus the Confederate philosophy, could you go in, because this ties in with the guns and butter? We going now. But you know anything about the Confederate philosophy, which was the South, and then the Union philosophy?
Listen,
Go ahead.
the Confederate philosophy is the Iroquois Confederacy document.
Okay.
Right. It's the same place that they derived the okay, so the
same flag, Rod.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
It's the origin of the Confederacy. They lied to us and told us it was two groups of Europeans fighting each other, and then we was involved in it because we was fighting to keep people in slavery in the South and fighting to free them from slavery in the North. That's the biggest crock of BS they ever told us.
Yeah, it's a lot.
The Confederacy, the true Confederacy, was the Southern Confederacy of Iroquois tribes. The Iroquois tribes was the host family of the Iroquois, or what they call the Gullah Wars, right? The Yamasee tribes and the Muskogee Creek tribes and the Creek tribes, all of the Creek tribes, they were named after the creek near where they from.
Yeah.
Right? So they was something Creek, River Creek, Black Creek, right? But they was the Creek tribe. If you see somebody Creek on the end of their last name, you know what I'm saying? Like River Creek, Black Creek, they are actually Creek Indian.
That's right.
That's the actual blood names that was translated into English from how they identified the subsets of their family groupings. So earlier you was mentioned about the tribes coming from west to east, and they climbing as runaways. They had their checkpoints. Well, remember, they had to set up Georgia as a buffer zone.
Yep, they did.
They were stopping the arrival of new tribes from reinforcing the war because the hot spot was Florida.
That's right.
You got to remember when they first came, they landed on the islands just south of Florida before they launched into the mainland. Primarily, the island today that they was calling Dominica, Haiti, they was calling it Hispaniola.
Yeah.
right? And then you had the Cuban island and a couple of the Virgin Islands. All these was launch points and reinforcement points for the Spanish Armada that was trying to force their way through Florida.
Yeah.
France, on the other hand, came through around the south of the Spanish.
Yeah.
And they landed on the other side of Hispaniola. This is how you split the island's linguistics. But they arrived after fighting in the Gulf at the port of Nola, the intake. And then they fought in the War of New Orleans. They fought for the protectorate, right? They captured the outpost that's called the Port of New Orleans.
Yeah, it's military barracks.
Right. So one of the tribes negotiated a ceasefire agreement with the French Huguenots in New Orleans to stop them from advancing.
Damn, right. Rod. No, the Huguenots is the one that brought the reclassify. They the one that came out with the idea to reclassify us and steal our land. The black Christian codes, all lit.
You gotta remember, the French and the Spanish both come from the Latin.
Okay.
Legalese is Latin. Our classifications is done through barristers. This takes you back to 1862, 1863, when King George
in Georgia
commissioned the barristers to seize and confiscate everything we have. Now they have to create a legal structural framework. In that legal structural framework, they got to write it down, and then they just got to wait for us to forget who he is. By miseducating the children, you can accelerate it. Go back to the George Washington Challenge.
Yeah.
They said they would go purposely teach us some lies. Right? Then you go to the most violent, bloody oath of the papacy. They said they're going to kill the people, the kings, the princes, and the people of the land. Well, we didn't call ourselves that, but they invading our land. That's what we would call what became known as our chiefs, which is also an exonym. That's not a name that we use. We just use it now because the foreigners recognize us as chiefs based on continuous usage, not on because that's who we called ourselves. Right? So now we have to adapt. We accept being referred to as the chief until we can get the imposters off the land.
Yeah.
Then we can going back to reclassifying our leadership according to our tribal structures.
Hey man, this is my next question for you, Rod. Now, once we get them off the land, and that's what Elijah Muhammad referred to as the hereafter, right? Once we get the devil out of here, right? Now, how are we gonna clean all the pollution? Because they said that when like Christopher Columbus said in his diaries, he said their water is crystal clear. Their land is so beautiful, it's clean. You know, it's not because they. You know, in Europe, they had the dark age where it was no disease. They were really rampant.
Okay, pump the brakes. I'm glad you brought that up, Elder. Pump the brakes for 1 minute, though.
Go ahead.
You just gave a description of the condition of the Americas in the time of Columbus. What was he comparing them conditions to? And then you brought up the Dark Ages. How long was the Moors supposed to be in Europe civilizing? From 711 to 1493.
Yeah.
Why they wasn't civilized still?
Go ahead. That's a good question.
Think about that for a second. They over there civilizing them.
Cleaning them up. Yeah.
Right? Teaching them how to be of noble character and quality.
To
teach them how, they're supposed to be training them and and they supposed, if you civilizing somebody, you teaching them cleanliness is next to godliness. If you civilizing them. You teaching them how to organize and keep stuff in a systematic order so that they can more smoothly run society. Why when they get over here, you see how he described America?
Yeah.
they still don't know how to take a bath.
Yeah.
Let it sink in.
They were
The
peeing in
grievance
pots.
over is in the statues over there. It's in the art. The problem that they vexing is the abuse of the children, using the children for adrenochrome and sex toys. That's their grievance why they was getting rid of the so-called Moors, right? They created all three monotheistic religions out of Coptic doctrine, fused with Babylonian blood magic, Babylonian money magic, Babylonian sex magic. That's being taught in the Talmud and the Mishnah, and then they giving you something called the Torah as if that's the book of their tribe. The Torah is the book of the law, right? And as soon as they can get you to take sides with somebody in their book, they got you. You taking a side with the people that's doing all the dirt in the whole book. Ain't none of the other people in the book doing the dirt but these people. And they supposed to be God's people, but we forget that the devil is God too, according to their doctrine. Right? The only thing he don't got the power to is to F you up without God permission. But as we see in Job, if God give him the permission, he can ping pong you all around the land and give you the worst miserable life he could possibly conjure up in his wicked mind.
Wow.
Right?
That's right.
So what make you think you better than Job in God's eyes? Because he said Job was a righteous and upright man, and God knew
Top line.
Job wasn't gonna never curse the name of the Most High. Do what they tell us in the book. But God, the same one who named he won't curse, the same one who he's staying faithful, dedicated, and loyal to, is the same one sick the devil on. Because the devil didn't ask first. God sick the devil on him. He didn't.
Yeah,
the
God
devil
told him
didn't say,
about
"Hey, man." He said, "Hey, what you doing here?" I was roaming back and forth to and fro, looking for who I may devour. Right? And he said, "Well, wait a minute. I got one for you, player. You see my boy Job? You see my boy Job over there, right? Pimping ain't easy, baby. Watch how this is the most loyal one I ever had put on the track."
That's facts.
And then he said, "Yeah, I would go ahead and I would go at it, but you got all your, protection around him and everything. And them bodyguards Job got ain't no joke." But he said, "No, I'm gonna pull him off. I'm gonna let you have your way with Job. Only thing you just can't kill Job. And in the end of the day, Job can come back home." So look, the devil go attack Job. So what make you think you better than Job that God won't ransom and gamble you? And what kind of God would ransom and gamble his most loyal subject?
Number one guy.
His number one guy. Why would you ransom him? Why would you offer him up to the enemy as bait? For what? Oh, he was just testing you. Just wanted to, I thought he knew.
Yeah.
He knew, but he wanted to prove to the devil. Why he got to prove something if he God?
That's crazy.
Right? So they got us following they edicts so we can be trapping ourselves in their own conjure by deliberately choosing ignorance over information.
That's right. And something wrong.
Where we informed at the same time.
Right. And then so from my understanding, overstanding, that King James and them didn't bring the Bible at first. They came in 1607, and then they said, "Oh, we got to come up with something that we can enslave them with." And it took them 4 years later with 1611 when they came back with the joint. They didn't come back with the joint really heavy till the like after that. You know what I'm saying? A couple years
You
later.
got to keep in mind. Okay, so at this time, nobody's bringing no religious books yet. We in full throttle warfare with Spanish exiles.
Yeah. Yeah.
With French exiles.
Yeah.
With English outcasts. Remember, they try to tell us that the colonies was made up of English outcasts,
Yeah, convicts
the
and poor immigrants.
prisoners, the prostitutes from the
Yeah,
brothels.
yeah, yeah.
Who owned but during the Moorish reign, who owned the brothels?
The Moors.
Think about that for a minute. So if the brothels was owned by the Moors, then who owned the prisons?
The Moors.
Had to,
Yeah,
because they were supposed to be the civilized ones on the land, teaching the other ones how to be civilized.
right.
But they ain't teaching them civilization, because we know that because they had jails over there, and they had prostitutes over there, and they had orphans over there that they was trying to dispose of.
Yeah,
How do we know that? Because they said that they came over here with their indentures who was exiles from the crown to work the land,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
How you gonna work somebody else's land? Make it make sense.
All right,
How
go
you gonna
ahead.
get us in, how you gonna get us in there where the people who landed is not gonna rebel,
Yeah,
right? We gonna hire you as a consultant firm, right? So they tell the story to move them in and give them Big Mama Farm.
yeah.
But all the time, the people that's giving them the farm is the ones who's selling the land, not the people from the land,
Right.
right? And they're using the paperwork as the verification of their right to do so. But it's only one problem. All of the tribes over here was matrilineal and didn't believe in selling land.
That's right.
So when we understand that part of it, we know that anybody that's selling land for any reason other than deception and force, which is 99% of the reason. And if they was forced into selling the land, or if they was defrauded into it by using trickery and deception through sharecropping agreements,
That's
we
right.
know from that paper trail that the sharecroppers, where they get the land from.
Right.
When you go back, cause you could Google this. The most heirs land in America right now is owned to African Americans, as they call us.
Go ahead.
How do we got heirs land and we ain't never been allowed to buy no land until the 1970s? They wouldn't let us buy land. They wouldn't let us sell land, trade land. They wouldn't let us in none of their learning institutions or higher learning. So they doing all this in our face, behind our back.
Right.
And we got to figure out how to take them over while they trying to take us over.
They said that on that. It's a tape that I got coming out about the Lewis and Clark expedition, and they said that when they came through, there was some people on the land, and then they came to them, knocked on the door, and then they come to him and say, "Look, man, you can either sell this land." And they're like, "Oh well, I don't sell. We gonna sell land. We don't even know what that is." And then
Hold on. You overlooking what you're saying.
yeah,
Look, they had a translator, didn't they?
yeah, Ben York,
And who was he talking to that he needed to translate the language for Lewis and Clark?
the Native Americans.
And how far across the land did they go before they turned around and came back?
They went all the way up into Washington, past Oregon, Washington, all the way up into Seattle.
Ain't that the Pacific coast over there?
Yeah, they went
Okay.
over to the coast.
And they needed a translator at several places between, right?
Yeah, pretty much the
I mean,
Lakota people.
it had to be people. It had to be people there.
Yeah,
It had to be. You don't need a translator to go across a barren land that don't got no people.
Damn sure right. He had a dog with him too. Ben York had a dog and he had an assistant. Ben York had an assistant with him, because Ben York was like a hunter, and he was real charismatic. You know how the Moors, they think they playboys or whatever. But this another thing it said that was interesting. It said that Lewis and Clark told them that you can stay here on the land, but you got to sign this paperwork saying that you changed your status, and we'll let you stay on the land. Pretty much, they went around sharecrop, turning all the natives that was on the land into sharecroppers, and by stealing their birth.
So that was the North American salvage right.
Okay, go ahead.
You gotta remember that when they said that we crashed, we had to crash. Plymouth Rock landed on us.
Oh yeah, it did say something about that too, about the savage rights and the abandoned land.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Lewis and Clark were surveyors.
That's right.
Right. And being York was more than a surveyor.
Yeah.
He served as the official translator on record, but he was the actual operative geologists, geometrists, geologists on the land.
Right. He could tracker. He was a good tracker.
They tell you all the stuff he could do when you read they tell you a lot about him and they don't use his name.
Yeah.
Why do they we know who it is, but when they telling the story, they always say the black slave.
Yeah. Yeah. Enslaved man.
Who was the slave master of being York?
They said it was Lewis and Clark. That's a lot of.
It's not possible.
Yeah, it's too many.
Because he was born. Look, being York was born a free man of Negro descent as the son of Old York.
Yeah.
And his wife.
Yeah.
In Virginia.
Yeah.
Right. A free man. He was born a free man, and now he is the designer, the first almanac, because we know being Beta be Benjamin Banneker.
Right, I heard that story too. I heard that.
Right, that's who he is. Yeah. Now, the irony of it all is his fez is in the Fez Memorial at the George Washington Masonic Memorial as one of the dirty Moors that we've been fighting. And his offspring. Right? This is why they don't tell us who this is traveling across the land with Lewis and Clark in the Lewis and Clark story. But when we study the story of Benjamin Banneker and how he learned all of these languages by the time he was 21, and then we learned that he was the one who wrote the first almanac, made the first clock in North America. What the hell you mean clock when the Mayan clock been here for thousands of years?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So what do you mean the first clock? Now we talking about tying in the clock of destiny with the Big Ben clock in London by tying Big Ben to the clock of destiny in America in the Moorish paradigm. They telling you exactly who they are, but they telling them that they hiding among you.
Look, so you thinking that because 1806 is when they said they get a storyline. I got the whole storyline of Benjamin Banneker about to come out too. I already did the storyline already a long time ago. I'm just gonna redo it. But they said that in 1806, that the Knights of Templar raided his house, burned it down, stole some paperwork, whatever paperwork he had, and then they also said that he was working with George Washington as a secret agent for the British Crown. And it also said that make the timelines line up with what you're saying now about being York, because the Louisiana Purchase was in 1803, and so then it'd be 3 years later he get took out by Knights of Templar. So I don't know who took him out. They said he took off walking. The storyline they give, he took off walking, and then he came down with some kind of illness and died the same day. I was like, man, these people, they tell us whatever, you know.
But yeah, and 9 out of 10, it was a poison dart.
Probably, yeah.
From an air gun.
Yeah.
Then the air gun probably traced back to some tribe out of South America.
Yeah.
We was calling all tribes on deck.
Yeah, Big York traced back to. Oh.
You right over there?
Oh yeah, keep going, Rod. Keep going.
Oh, okay. So the tribes that came from everywhere, from South America and the islands to fight in the Gullah Wars. And they used a legal system in a fractional reserve banking system after they closed all of our stuff down to it's a hostile takeover. It was a military invasion that was masqueraded as government expansion. But it was actually territory expansion of a foreign agency, a foreign government across the land of the people. Yep.
Hey, Rod, we're gonna keep on. What I was gonna tell you. We're gonna take some questions for the crowd. Hey, y'all, drop your comments in the crowd real quick in the chat.
What'd you say, Elder?
I say we're at the hour and 30-minute mark. We can take questions from the crowd. But you've been going in tonight, man. You just gave me some stuff on some more connections while I was trying to connect it, Ben York and Benjamin Banneker, because I was going to put that tape out. And so now
That's
you just gave me a couple.
That's who Ben York is.
Yeah, I heard that before, but now you just gave me the final piece that I need to tie in to put it together.
Mm-hmm. Look, who was the girl with Lewis and Clark?
That's what yeah. And who was the other dude that was with Ben York? The other black dude, or the other dude they said that was with him?
Look, Sacagawea was the girl that traveled with Ben York
Right.
and Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, he had a
She
son.
had a son. And his son name was Jean Baptiste, not Dusable, but it was something else. John Baptiste. Oh, let me look it up. Let me look it up.
And his son became chief, right? Of the Shoshone.
I'm about. That's where I'm going with this. I'm about to show y'all how the trick worked.
Yeah, Shaka the wheel. They got